Welcome to session 15. We've finally made it. We are here at the last session. Now, I've shortened this session considerably and just want to take a few minutes to wrap up and make a few final points. This session is about looking forward and using predictions to determine what we may face down the road. I'll give you some examples of trends related to compensation that are bouncing around out there. And I implore you to continue to read and study to keep up and improve upon the knowledge that you've acquired in this class. But I also implore you to take a look at the bigger picture and prepare for your career. Where is the economy going? What are the prospects for the future? What will be required of your chosen career field in the future? Should you enter your career field immediately, or is this a good time to consider graduate school until the job market improves? I don't know. That's your call, but it's an important call. And I can't imagine making that call on a whim. Careful study and consideration is a must. And that doesn't include talking to a few friends who graduated last year. Go to the data. Go to the written predictions. Weigh the evidence and make a decision and then make it work. Simple, right? Well, actually, it is rather simple. Gain as much knowledge as you can, collect as much data as you can, and then make a decision. Don't over-collect data and don't overthink. Get to the doing part. Now, don't get me wrong. I know all of you understand this, but sometimes it takes a restating of the obvious to get us on or to keep us on track. You are all blessed to be young and starting on a career. You are all blessed to have that career in your own hands. And when you all become CEOs, making those seven-figure salaries we talked about, think back to this day and say, you know what? Those executive salaries that Willie told me about really don't look so bad right now. Good luck in all your future endeavors. Welcome to session 15. Well, we finally reached the last session. And I promise that this one won't be long. I'll shorten it significantly. I just wanted to take a moment to put some things in perspective and to also give you some future food for thought. We have covered enough material that you should be able to understand the basics of recruiting and selection and also the basics of compensation systems. Of course, you're not experts. That comes with experience, but hopefully you have the necessary knowledge to take the first step towards becoming an expert if you choose. Just to put things in a little more perspective, I don't consider myself an expert either. However, both you and I now have the basic knowledge to converse with anyone on the topic of recruiting, selection, and compensation. And perhaps with a little more research, you can actually set up a recruiting plan or develop a compensation plan for a small organization. In addition, I hope we know enough to know what we don't know. We have enough knowledge to understand if we need expert help, and we know enough to converse and guide that help when we receive it. If we have come that far, we've accomplished our initial goal. Let me give you an example. I'm not a lawyer, and I thank myself every day for that. I know something about the law as it relates to business and particularly to HR. I know enough to understand when trouble may lurk on the horizon, and I know enough to understand when I need to call for help. You know, lawyers, just like all professions, come in different skill and expertise levels. I know enough to understand when a lawyer is unskilled, incompetent, or unable to fill my needs. I have dismissed and replaced lawyers for those reasons. More importantly, I know how to interview attorneys and find professionals who can contribute to my organization rather than just collecting a fee. I also have enough knowledge to function day to day without the assistance of an expert. At the Noel Group, I met with our attorneys shortly after I accepted the HR position. I wasn't impressed with the decisions, guidance, and the work that they had turned in prior to my arrival. In meeting with them, I was even less impressed. They seemed intent on reciting the law as written and ignoring what our organization needed. They were intent on telling us repeatedly what we couldn't do rather than guiding us towards what we needed to do. I started interviewing other firms and found one that seemed to understand our needs and my requirements. I dismissed the first firm and contracted with the new firm. It worked great in meeting the challenges that we faced. Although I was, and still am not, an expert in law, I knew enough to manage our legal affairs. I hope you have acquired that level of knowledge as it relates to selection and compensation. So we have a bevy of knowledge that can be applied to the real world. As I've said in previous sessions, that's fine as long as the real world stays unchanged. If so, then our basic knowledge is adequate. However, it is unlikely that the world will cooperate in maintaining the status quo. We must keep up with the changes and improve our knowledge base accordingly. It's a little like my or your doctor. I believe my doctor probably had a pretty good understanding of the body systems and ailments that afflict us when he came out of medical school. But I would like to think that he also understands where the medical profession is going and has kept up with recent changes. It just makes me feel better when he's poking around. And before you go poking around in business and particularly selection and compensation, you should have a good understanding of the trends and their implications. Hence, our current journey and our attention to trends as a wrap-up for our basic knowledge base. Keep up with the marketplace, regardless of your chosen profession. It is more than part of your job, it is your ethical responsibility. Understand what you may face in the future and prepare for it today. Following are a few websites with the title of the article that outline predicted trends in compensation, recruiting, and selection. I only use 4 references, but understand I could fill this page with articles predicting the future and trends. Seems everyone has an opinion about what's coming. Here are some of the predictions with my comments underlined. The website references allow you to read the background information if you find it interesting. Now, the first article is entitled Salary and Compensation Trends for Forward-Thinking Companies. And the article discusses the following trends. Organizations are going to be offering a larger variable pay alternative increase in the amount of 7 to 8%. So increases aren't going to be 2 to 3% anymore, they're going to be 7 to 8%, but it's going to be variable pay. Organizations will develop a compensation philosophy and direction, put it in writing, and that will be reviewed by the board of directors. The compensation philosophy will also include a method for broadbanding, so broadbanding is going to become more important. And the compensation structure should include a responsible measurement system, with less emphasis on increasing base pay and more emphasis on distribution of gains through bonuses. Base pay less important, bonuses more important. Goal attainment will be rewarded for individual and organizational goals. Goal achievement will be based on outcomes and deliverables that are measured. And the cost and importance of benefits in the total compensation package will increase. It actually has already increased. Now, I'm not sure I fully believe the first 2 predictions about pay increases being 7 to 8% and the board of directors approving the philosophy, but I believe the last 5 are already happening in many organizations and will become even more refined. The second article is entitled 5 Compensation Trends Employers Should Consider. And the trends they list are: marketing position in the labor market will be important when the job market opens up, which it most assuredly will. Total reward statements are effective to let employees know what they are receiving. In other words, as we discussed, the value proposition. Reviewing and ensuring that total rewards packages are well and properly structured is important as the economy recovers and will take on even more importance. There'll be a refocus on pay for performance, including a review of and revising, if necessary, of the performance management system. And finally, the culture may need to shift to a merit-based pay process, and we discussed that in our lectures as well. We talked about each of these trends during our semester, and I believe they're all important and becoming even more so. They should receive a lot of attention in coming years. Now, the next article is entitled Five Compensation and Workforce Trends for 2015. And their trends include companies will continue to grow. That may sound a little simplistic, but what they're saying is that growth is going to be on the horizon for most companies. Employees will get raises. The era of stagnant salaries has come to a close. Retention will continue to be a cause for concern. Some positions will still be hard to fill, and social media will continue to align with business strategy. Now, I find all of these trends on the mark and receiving a lot of attention in the near future. I believe that the second trend, which is employees will get raises and the era of stagnant salaries has come to a close. I believe that second trend is true, but truer for some employees than others. I think top performers will fare very well, but average and poor performers will see much less in terms of increases in the future. Not necessarily less than they are receiving now, but less than top performers, and certainly less than what they were used to receiving or has been a traditional in a good business climate. The last article is called This Year Predicts Top Recruitment, Retention, and Compensation Trends for 2015. Their trends include companies will double down on retention and recruiting. Both retention and recruiting will become very important. Organizations will move their focus from headcount to total work cost. That may include strategies such as using more contingent workers, and we talked about that as well. Generational shifts will be increasingly a hot topic, and I think that's very true. Depth of insight into diversity will become more valued. Diversity is going to be important in the future, and the companies will go from analyzing the past to planning and predicting the future. Now, I agree with all of these predictions. I believe the emphasis on generational shifts, diversity issues, and the focus on future are particularly interesting. Now, these references give you a flavor of what to expect and what is changing in the future. You will agree with some and disagree with others, but you should be aware of the possibilities. You can then choose which possibilities are important to you and act accordingly. That is vastly different than waiting for things to happen to you and your organization. But don't just focus on trends directly related to the topics at hand. Other areas may provide trends that impact compensation, recruiting, and selection. For example, trends in the housing market have directly impacted our ability to retain and recruit employees in recent years. The housing market recently has improved retention dramatically, but hindered recruiting. When the housing market collapsed, the recruiting world changed. There was tremendous inventory of houses on the market, and prices dropped to new lows. Selling a home anywhere in America was difficult at best. Prospective employees could not entertain new opportunities outside the local area because they could not sell their current home and often had difficulty buying homes in the new market due to lending restrictions. As the housing market begins to rebound, some of that pressure has subsided, but there are still areas of the country where prospective employees just can't sell their house. Therefore, recruiting is still suppressed to an extent. On the flip side, since it was difficult for employees to move to a new company and a new job, retention became less of an issue. Retention policies and programs, which were very important, became less so, and pay increases also seemed to lose meaning from an employer perspective. Initially, one would think that the housing market would have little relationship to recruiting, retention, and compensation. But as described above, they are intimately connected. So follow the trends, but don't let the trends rule your judgment. Some published trends won't greatly impact your organization. Some published trends you may disagree with. Some published trends are long-term and will take a lot of time to impact your workplace. Those call for consideration, but not immediate action. Some published trends may be driving change now and may require some adjustments within your organization. Basic knowledge is useful only when we build on it. I invite you to take this new knowledge and start your building project now. I hope I have been of some help in starting you down this path. I've enjoyed your participation, your sharing of ideas and experiences, and the effort you all have put into this class. Thanks for a great semester, and good luck in all your future endeavors.